Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at RE Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
New year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Visit Blinds.com now for up to 45% off with minimum purchase plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions apply.
Hello everyone, Chris here. Just a quick reminder that this episode of How We're the Podcast is sponsored by LifeScore Bet, a proud principal partner of Sunderland AFC. And if you're looking to get started, they've got a cracking welcome offer for new customers. Bet £10 on sports and get £30 in free bets. Simple as that. So if you're ready to join the action, make sure you're doing it with LifeScore Bet, the home of total betting. New members only. Bet more than £10 on sports within 14 days. Free bets valid 7 days. £20 to use on Sportsbook. £10 on Bet Builder. Terms and conditions and deposit exclusions apply. Please bet responsibly and remember, over 18s only. And now, cue the music. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast, sponsored by LifeScore Bet. And it's that time of year that I used to love, which is something we might get into a bit more because it's the beginning of January, which, of course, is the FA Cup third round. And as it was only 4 years ago when we were getting knocked out in the first round before the festive season, I'm still just happy to be in the draw for the first cup tie of the new year. But we haven't had much luck in the FA Cup in recent years, having just got past the third round once in the last 10 years. But this weekend, a fifth of the Premier League clubs will exit the competition, with there being 4 all-Premier League ties. And we are one of them, of course, as we head to Everton's shiny brand new stadium to see who will make it to the fourth round. So to help us take a look at where Everton are at the moment and how much stock they might be placing in a cup run, we're very lucky to have the company of the Everton reporter for the Liverpool Echo, as well as the author of Spirit of the Blues, because we're very glad to welcome Chris Beesley. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Good to be here.
Yeah, how's it going, mate? Because we're just talking about the weather this week. Yeah, it's causing havoc, innit? As it always does.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think we're going to be okay for the game. But I've even had a little sprinkling of snow by us here, which is quite rare, really. We don't tend to get much by the Mersey, but I think we'll be all right in that score. So I just hope all the Sunderland fans can travel safely to Hill Dickinson Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, that's it. Well, a peek behind the curtain. We are recording before the midweek fixtures, which we'll probably mention further into the podcast. But I was just going to say, just in case, Chris, I decided it's too late to say Happy New Year because people at work are still doing it, and I'm rolling my eyes.
Yeah, I know, isn't it? A staggered start when does the Happy New Year's end? But no, I think that's fine. I think we're okay at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because I mentioned it in the intro, Chris, that talking about this weekend, when the FA Cup kicks around, I used to always love it. I mean, I go back to, I remember when I was really young, quite young, must have been about 8 or 9, something like that. I always remember Wrexham knocking Arsenal out in the third round at the racecourse and stuff like that. I used to love this weekend.
Yeah. Me too. I think football has unfortunately changed, like so many things. There's more people watching it than ever before. The standard of play is probably better than ever before, but is it a better game? Is it a better sport? I don't think so from a point of view. And it's so much harder to win the FA Cup. And also I think that the not because we want it to be diminished, but it has been diminished as a competition. I think the creation of the Champions League did a lot of this, and this idea that you've just got to finish as high up the Premier League table as possible rather than winning a trophy. I would say, I don't know, I can't speak for Sunderland, but for a club like Everton, who are currently on the longest ever trophy drought, at the end of the day, only Manchester United and Liverpool have won major trophies in more decades than Everton. If winning a trophy isn't Everton's raison d'etre, why do they exist anymore? So for me, that's a huge thing. And I imagine it'd probably be the same for a club of Sunderland's aspirations as well. But managers prioritise league positions. And I would say for both Everton and Sunderland, two teams who we can get into this, won't be haunted, hopefully, by relegation this season. Sunderland have got enough points on the board as it is. I think Sunderland should enjoy this season for what it is now, regardless what happens in the second half. Got to just take the FA Cup as seriously as possible. Both these teams, go as strong as you can on Saturday and win the competition. I mean, if you get a tough draw and you go out, well, so be it, but just give it your best shot. And yeah, I think it's sad what's happened with the FA Cup. You're probably similar to me. You can rattle off all the finals from yesteryear up to a certain point, and then when it gets to about the 21st century, you're kind of scratching your head. And I think that's kind of the way that the FA Cup has gone. And just because, like I say, that the Champions League and finishing up as high up at the Premier League as possible is the key for the managers and for the money men in the sport. And whereas the fans want the glory, it should be about those days out at Wembley and winning a trophy.
That's it. Back to those days of Ronnie Radford on the muddy pitch, smashing one in against the Mags. Again, for Hereford, bring back those days, if you ask me. But just a bit about you, Chris, because mentioned about that working for the Liverpool Echo. But how long have you been reporting on Everton for the Echo?
Yeah, well, actually, interesting. But before that, I did the Liverpool Daily Post for your listeners. There used to be two daily newspapers in Liverpool. The Echo was the evening newspaper and the Daily Post was the morning newspaper. So I started off at the Daily Post and then they merged the titles and it became the Echo. But Sunderland always got a special place in my heart because the first game that I actually covered for the paper, for the Liverpool Daily Post, was Sunderland away. I'm sure your listeners will remember it was a real tough time for Sunderland. It was the 2005-06 season. It was New Year's Eve. They probably couldn't get anyone else to cover the game. Enthusiastic young reporter for his first game. Sunderland won a wretched run. Everton had been struggling too. And to be fair, Sunderland actually battered Everton that day, but Nigel Martin played a blinder in goal and Tim Cahill nicked it in stoppage time. Classic smash and grab with a header. So that was my first game. Just over 2 decades ago now. So I've been doing it for just over 20 years now. Used to cover Everton and Liverpool, but in recent years, so I've had many trips up there to the stadium. I'd like covering Liverpool as well. So, but in recent years, just Everton, and as you can probably guess from it, but the fact that I've written that book, Spirit of the Blues, I am an Evertonian. Everton are my first footballing love. So I've been doing it for 20 years, and obviously it's been at 2025 was a pivotal moment in Everton's history with the move from Goodison Park to Hill Dickinson Stadium.
Yeah, just looking at the lineup for that game, actually, you had Duncan Ferguson and Marcus Bent on the bench for that one. James Beattie was up front.
Yeah, I remember Everton were really under the cut. Sunderland were really struggling, but Alan Stubbs, who'd been Everton's captain the previous season when they'd had their highest ever Premier League finish, came fourth and qualified for the Champions League. He'd left Everton because he basically wanted a 2-year deal. Moyes had only given him one. He went to Sunderland. He wasn't even getting a game in that Sunderland side. And I remember him warming up on the bench and the Evertonians would cheer him. And as it happened, he ended up going back to Everton within the month. But yeah, it was a crazy old game. But definitely great memories for me. But I suspect not so for the Sunderland fans. Real tough time for them.
No, you say we battered Everton. We had a strike force of Andy Gray and John Stead, so that'll explain why we didn't score any goals. But just talking about the Liverpool Echo, because I go off what I see in the local press in Sunderland, because I remember when I was young queuing up for the Sports Echo in Sunderland at the local newsagents every Saturday night after the game, 6 o'clock. I still don't know how they did it, but they managed to. But local papers seem to be kind of in a strange place in general. I mean, is it just a case of trying to find different avenues to reach people when it comes to regional kind of sports journalism?
Yeah, it's strange because more people than ever are reading our stories, but obviously it's online first. I very much grew up in. I'm old enough. When I started my career in 2000, we didn't even have a computer with access to the internet in the office. So basically, I've seen it's like the Industrial Revolution, isn't it? That scope of change. Imagine telling that. Yeah, I mean, you're laughing at you, but yeah. Imagine telling that to the kids now. Yeah, we didn't even have internet in the office and we were producing a newspaper. It's very sad, really. I think the real sort of local papers, when I'm talking about not maybe the big cities like Liverpool, but I started off at the Ellesmere Port Pioneer. Ellesmere Port, a town within Liverpool's environs, about 20 miles away. And there was a real thriving sporting scene within that town. Like I said, the local newspaper, and it was a real good grounding for someone like myself, a recent graduate looking to get into the profession. And those sort of newspapers, unfortunately, don't exist anymore. Ourselves at the Echo, the print circulation has got down. I think we do well compared to other places, but certainly a shadow of what it used to be. Yet more people than ever are reading our stuff online, and I think the key challenge now for newspapers is because everybody's so used to getting everything online. A lot of papers trying to get, they've got to make ends meet and they're trying to put more copy behind paywalls. I know our paper are doing it as well because ultimately since day one people have paid for their news, but the thing is because of the internet they got used to getting it for free. So yeah, I think that's the big challenge now for newspapers going forward, certainly online, is trying to get back to that habit of maybe, just paying a little bit for that content because you've got to pay the bills at the end of the day. But yeah, it's been a tumultuous time to be in the profession this last 25 years. I celebrated my 25th anniversary in the industry in August. Yeah, man and boy, 25 years with the company. And yeah, like I said, it's been an absolute revolution in terms of that, from starting off, a weekly print newspaper in 2000 to obviously being a digital journalist now, and all the demands that are on us. And myself and Joe Thomas, we're a two-man team on match days, and we provide we're working flat out 2 hours before the game and 2 hours afterwards as well, and obviously the 2 hours during. So, I mean, I suppose like a football, people would see it as a dream job that a lot of people would have to do, but we do work very hard. We're not just traveling around the country, eating for free and watching football for free. We do put a shift in. Whether you like what we produce or not, we are very busy.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, just on that, I mean, what do you see as kind of being the role of that local sports journalist now? Because back in the day, it used to always be the local journalists who got all the gossip first. But now, of course, with social media, everyone either just makes it up or they get the gossip first on there.
Yeah, it changed. What I will do as an example, actually, for you there, somebody who came from not too far from Sunderland at all, obviously, Howard Kendall, born in County Durham. He's Everton's most successful manager. When he was at Everton, Everton's old training ground, Belfield, was very close to where Liverpool's old training ground, Melwood, was. They were both in the West Derby suburb of Liverpool, quite close to Queen's Drive, which is the the ring road around Liverpool when you come off the motorway. So when the local journalists would be, the national ones, the media pack, they do one after the other. Howard Kendall would always want Everton to go second. He'd want them to visit Liverpool first, presumably whoever was their opposite manager. I mean, it was usually Kenny Dalglish. He'd want them to speak to Liverpool first, so he would know what the Liverpool line was before they'd come to Everton second, because he wanted to. I mean, Liverpool is the more successful club, the bigger global fan base, and he'd want to top what the Liverpool manager had said. He'd want to give you a better line, and that seems totally alien to what you're at now, where it's all about give as little away as possible. And I'm not talking about David Moyes in general. David Moyes is actually very good, but as a whole, managers in the profession, they're trying to give you as little as possible. The clubs are trying to give you as little as possible, and that just shows you the sea change. A generation ago, the manager was going out of his way to try and get you that better line. And I think we have to tread a careful line as well in terms of, I think there's certain expectations with the local paper. You can't just be a mouthpiece for the club. You can't just not criticise them. I'd like to say it would be a relationship like a family member, because you've got your best interests at heart. You can maybe say those home truths at a time, and I think that would be the more healthy relationship with a local newspaper and the team. Somebody who does care about you've got your interests at heart, but then, when something is going wrong, you have to call them out about it.
Well, that's it. Well, you mentioned straight off the bat, you talked about kind of, maybe not quite as being as easy as people think in terms of covering the local club, but you did mention the move to the new stadium. Is it a bit more comfortable covering them at the new stadium than it was at Goodison?
Yeah, well, it's a bit more spacious. That's for sure. Goodison Park's press box was probably one of the tightest, certainly in the top flight. I mean, I can't speak for the lower divisions, but I guess because of it being in the Premier League, there's often, it was full. And certainly, if you want to stretch out, if you don't like, if you value your personal space, the Goodison Park press box would not be the place to be. I mean, we ended up with the one working monitor at the end, and crazily, they used to stick the tallest man in the press box next to it. A colleague of mine, he's about 6'8" or something like that, and so he'd be sat in front of the one working monitor. Yeah, it was probably built when everyone was 5'6" and had a notepad. Whereas, if you'd have all with your laptops, and also the pillar. I mean, unfortunately, the main stand at Goodison Park had like the Bullens Road, where all the away fans, the Sunderland fans would have known. People have compared. I mean, the first Everton game I went to was in the lower Bullens, but that ended up being the away end in the latter years. And people have compared it to watching it through the two wings of a Sopwith camel or something like that. The way that the upper tier would come down. I mean, here I am saying all these charming features about our beloved Goodison Park. But the pillar in the main stand, just as an example, Everton faced Fiorentina in a UEFA Cup penalty shootout in 2008, one of the sort of pivotal moments of David Moyes' first spell at the club. Probably Everton's biggest European night since Bayern Munich. And when it went to penalties, I had to decide, was I going to watch the penalty taker or the goal, because I couldn't see both at the same time. So, yes, don't have any of that at Hill Dickinson Stadium. But we love Goodison Park. She was the preeminent club ground in the country for most of her existence. But unfortunately for that last generation or so, she'd seen better times, and hence the need for the move. So,
I still think they should have just built a random pillar at the new stadium just in front of the away fans, just to make them feel a bit at home at Everton. But I mean, look, Sunderland went through that about 30 years ago, and I kind of felt that. And I always thought that I always put Goodison and Villa Park at almost the top of the list, where I thought they are proper grounds, proper football grounds that had a different feeling about it. So how was the move, kind of from an emotional point of view for Everton fans? Was everybody accepting that this is the move we have to make, or were there a few thinking, Goodison's got this feel about him, will we ever get that back?
Fortunately, I think that Everton have done well because it's taken so long. They've needed. They was first. I'm 46, and they were first actively looking to move grounds when I was 16. It's been going on for a generation. And because of that, I mean, Sunderland went early in that respect. I mean, Roker Park had the old famous Archibald Leach crisscross designs, same as Goodison. I mean, Goodison ended up sort of, Ibrox has got it as well, but there are very few of those left now. But for once upon a time, there were stands like that on down the country. So I'm hoping that Everton, as painful as it has been, like I said, the club's longest ever trophy drought, and I'm sure that is not a coincidence that has corresponded with the demise of Goodison Park as one of the top football grounds in the country. I mean, it was listed when Everton had the points deduction. It was actually in their appeal. It was cited the fact that Goodison was in the bottom three grounds in the Premier League when it came to generating matchday revenue. So that shows you it needed to happen from an economic point of view. They reckon Everton are going to get an extra £60 million a year in terms of revenue now with the move to the new stadium. So it needs to be viewed from that point of view. But I think what Everton will hopefully benefit from as well is, like I said, moving late in this process. Since obviously the Taylor report and Hillsborough, the clubs have been looking at building new stadiums for the past 30 years now. And as I said, Sunderland went early in that respect. I mean, I'm sure our Sunderland fans have got their own views about the Stadium of Light, but now almost 30 years on, you can tell the difference between that first generation of new grounds and the stadia which are being built now. I think Everton are very fortunate in, first of all, with their location of the ground. It's an iconic location on the banks of the Mersey. Banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, as the name of my second book is going to be called. I did one book on the 133 years at Goodison, and now doing a second book on 1 year on the first season at the new stadium. So first of all, it's an iconic location. It's part of the Liverpool skyline. I mean, Liverpool fortunate enough to, being where it is, to have that iconic skyline anyway, with the three graces on the liver buildings on the front, two cathedrals, all of that. The new stadium's part of that. If you think where Everton could have ended up, they had one previous attempt to go on the river, thwarted in the early 2000s. That was going to be at King's Dock, where the indoor arena now is. That fell through, and people thought that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity missed. But in between then, they could have ended up in Kirkby. And for your listeners, that's a satellite town outside of the city of Liverpool boundaries. And I think Liverpool's probably, I know you might be like that, similar up in the northeast as well, but the micro-geography which goes in the city of Liverpool, it would just, I know Manchester United play outside this city of Manchester boundaries, but they've been there for over a century and that doesn't affect them. If Everton had moved outside the city of Liverpool boundaries, it would have been such a psychological blow, I think, for their fan base to go out there, to get nothing against the good people of Kirkby. I mean, they're seen very much as Scousers. John Conte's from Kirkby, Leighton Baines is from Kirkby. Nothing wrong with that, but I don't think Everton should have ever considered building a football ground there. So that came and went, and the fact that they moved to on the Mersey, but also the design of the stadium. It was designed by American architect Dan Meese, and it's got tight stands. It's really steep. It's the steepest that the laws will allow them. So that south stand, the idea is, the yellow wall at Dortmund to create a blue wall in terms of that for Everton. So in that respect, hopefully the fact it took Everton so long to build a new stadium means that they're getting the best of both worlds. They're getting a tight, intimate atmosphere, but with the modern facilities that go with that. So it's been a long and painful process in many respects. But I think that they say often, don't they, the best things are worth waiting for, and hopefully that is the case for Everton, because it's been a long time in coming.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned King's Dock, and for anyone who played on Championship Manager 2001, 2002, in the first couple of years of that game, they always moved to King's Dock. 60,000 all see the stadium, and that was 25 years ago. But yeah. But just before we get on to the Scottish manager, that will not be named for a bit longer, we will stop for a quick break. So we'll be back very soon.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
And welcome back to However the podcast, sponsored by LiveScore Bet. I was just going to say as well, we're getting into the Scottish manager, but for a while, Everton went for some big names in terms of managers. You've got Roberto Martinez, Ronald Koeman, Sam Allardyce, Marco Silva, Carlo Ancelotti, who I keep forgetting, was at Everton, Rafa Benitez as well. Maybe the less said about Rafa Benitez, the better from an Everton point of view. But in terms of David Moyes, is there a bit of a comfort blanket over Everton while he's in charge?
Yeah, incredibly, they had 8 managers in as many years under Farhad Moshiri, and that's never going to be a recipe for success. Sean Dyche actually ended up being the longest serving of the managers under Moshiri, and part of that was probably because Moshiri was actively looking at selling the club towards the end there. I mean, it's a boast akin to being the tallest of Snow White Seven Dwarfs, the longest serving manager under Farhad Moshiri. He still only did the one full season. So, yeah, he ended up with this awful sort of mishmash, Frankenstein's monster of a squad. We had all these different managers. Like you said, Carlo Ancelotti was the dream, but ended up being sort of like a coronavirus-induced fantasy behind closed doors. Did it really happen? Yeah, because what could have been, who knows with Carlo, but yeah, 8 managers in 8 years. And so what Everton needed was somebody who understood the club. And as I can sense from your tone, obviously it was a tough time in David Moyes' career. Sunderland, obviously he's got that relegation black mark on his CV there. And I mean, after he went then, they went down the following year as well, I remember. So that was the start of their decline at that point. But I think he's actually come back to Everton a wiser manager and better all-round manager than when he left. For the good times and the bad times, like obviously Manchester United, he's been the first of many now with Ruben Amorim going this week to fail to live up to what Sir Alex Ferguson did at Old Trafford. And probably you look back in retrospect, a lot of people probably think he should have deserved a bit longer. He was given a 6-year contract, a bit like Rossini has been given now at Chelsea. And he went after less than a year, but for all that, he went to Real Sociedad, obviously Sunderland, and then obviously rehabilitating his reputation at West Ham United. I think for the good and the bad, he's come back to Everton a better, more well-rounded manager. You've got to remember when he first came to Everton, when he actually walked through the door and dubbed them the People's Club in 2002, he was the youngest manager in the Premier League. He was only 38 at the time. He's now the division's elder statesman. So he's come full circle. You know, he's the oldest manager there now. Roy Hodgson no longer in a job. So David Moyes takes the mantle up there. And if you look at his record, he's done really well, particularly away from home. Everton recorded 9 away wins in the calendar year of 2025. They'd only had 1 on the road in the previous 12 months before that. I think he's just what Everton need right now. Sean Dyche had done well in really difficult circumstances at Everton. In terms of obviously the 2 points deductions in the one season, it was unprecedented. He kept them up at the start, and his first season when he came in, I mean, they were going down under Frank Lampard. Let's make no bones about it. Frank's a lovely man. And again, he's another one rehabilitating his reputation at Coventry City. Maybe people thought he was finished after what happened with him, but he's doing well. But he was taking Everton down. So Sean Dyche came in. They avoided what would have been their first relegation in 72 years by a single goal on the final day of the season, Abdoulaye Doucouré against Bournemouth. And it was still the lowest equivalent points total that they posted in their history that year, but they stayed up. And like I said, the points deductions the following year. So Dyche did well in the real tough circumstances. But that final season at Goodison Park, they were really struggling. Dyche sort of was unable to feed upon the emotion of the crowd and to get the best out of that Everton crowd. I know they beat Liverpool in the derby at Goodison, but that was one of the few occasions when they were able to do that. So they were really struggling, especially at home in that final season. Just 17 points at the halfway point, and obviously he went, and then David Moyes came back in, and Moyes was concerned he would actually tarnish his reputation from first time round. He was genuinely concerned, he could be the manager who took Everton down in the historic final season at Goodison Park. Thankfully for him, they got off to a decent start. Lost the first game against Villa, but then wins against Tottenham and then at Brighton, and that sort of set the tone for. I mean, he ended up avoiding relegation with 5 games to go. So I think it's like I say, it's important that Everton have got somebody. Whatever you think of David Moyes, he understands Everton. He's Everton's most successful Premier League manager. Everton finished in the top 8 9 times under David Moyes first time around. Nobody has got that any sort of consistency with Everton. Whatever he's done at other clubs, whether it be Sunderland, Manchester United, and the relative failures there, I think it's more than a relative failure. Obviously, he took Sunderland down. As an Everton manager, he knows what Evertonians want, and he can achieve the most consistent results that anybody has done with Everton in the modern age. So I think it's important to have him here right now, because I don't know who Everton would have turned to. I did not gone back to David Moyes. Presumably, they would have gone for one of these young, up-and-coming, I don't know, I say hipster, it's a bit unfair, but, progressive managers. But
Rosina.
Yeah, some of those haven't been what they were cracked up to be, and maybe weren't. Whereas a Hertzler can go into Brighton and do well under that model, I don't think a coach could come into Everton and have that kind of success. So I think it's Everton, what Everton certainly need right now, and it's a big opportunity for him. But I think Everton were fortunate to get him. I think if he didn't have that past association with Everton, Everton would not have got a manager of his calibre at the position they were in January. So yeah, I think he's just what Everton need right now, and there are big ups and downs this season, and we saw that obviously the great result at Forest, and then got turned over 4-2 by Brentford. But the fact is, they're far better than they were a year ago. And like Sunderland, I think they just got to enjoy what happens in the second half of the season. There'll be ups and downs. You've got to go with the ride, and you know they'll be okay.
You've touched on it a little bit in terms of Everton being the Premier League's big spenders a few years ago. From the outside, that seemed a bit of a mess while they were going through all of that. But how was that time to report on from your point of view?
Yeah, and that's why you end up with the points deductions for spending beyond your means. Yeah, the problem was, for all the big money that they were spending, they weren't bringing in the right players that they needed. The former owner, Farhad Moshiri, he actually admitted, he went on record, he apologised to the fans and said, we're not always spent large amounts of money wisely. Talk about that summer of 2017, they sold Romelu Lukaku after his agent, the late Mino Raiola, said he was 99.9999% set to sign a new contract. He didn't. So he had to be sold to Manchester United. He was sold for a record fee for 75 million, and they've never replaced him. He was a prolific striker. Remember him, actually? Was it the hat-trick up at Sunderland on that Monday night game? Yeah, he was a great... I mean, I don't think he gets the praise he deserves on some elements of the Everton fan base, but he's head and shoulders above all of Everton strikers in the Premier League era. So Lukaku was sold. They never replaced him. And they're just a misguided spending. They signed 3 separate number 10s that summer. I mean, 4 if you include Vlasic, but they brought in Wayne Rooney, came back, Gylfi Sigurdsson for a record sum, and Davy Klaassen from Ajax as well. And so you don't replace Lukaku at centre forward, but you bring in 3 number 10s, and that sort of sums up the misguided spending, and that continued, and that's going to catch up with you, unfortunately. I mean, obviously that's the summer they got Jordan Pickford from Sunderland as well. I mean, he head and shoulders, he's by far the most successful buy of that summer. He's arguably done more than any other individual player to ensure that Everton moved into the new stadium as a Premier League club, such has been his standing in recent years. But yeah, other than Jordan, I mean, Michael Keane's still there as well. He's had his ups and downs, but yeah, they spent a lot of money, and as the owner himself said, wasn't spent wisely. I mean, it could have been so different. I mean, if Everton had gone down, I suspect they could have even been in danger of doing what Sunderland did and go down again. I don't think they'd have bounced straight back up the condition they were in. So yeah, so for Sunderland to almost by the seat of their pants to sort of just keep their heads above water in recent years to get to where they are, they're very fortunate, because I think it could have been very, very different. If it had just gone down one of those years, I mean, that could have been curtains. But yeah, they just about managed to do it, and they are where they are now. And after a generation of, like I said, a bit of fans being brought up on an attritional diet of relegation battles, they're hoping for something better in the years ahead.
We'll get to where Everton are on the pitch in a minute, but just in terms of off the pitch, it seems like things have settled down, but have Everton got a clear direction of where they're going now?
Yeah, the new owners came in just over a year ago. It was actually December 2024. Just within a week of actually completing the takeover, they were handed the keys, the ceremonial handing over the keys for the new stadium. They're called the Friedkin Group. They're headed by a man called Dan Friedkin. They also own Roma, and it was an interesting one because Farhad Moshiri, the previous owner, he'd had various other people had come in and then they walked away. And the Friedkin Group did that over the summer. They came in, they walked away, but then they came back again. They probably thought maybe it was too good a deal to turn down, in terms of, because Everton were in such turmoil. They were being sold for less than what they would have go for in better times, as it were. And with the new stadium on the horizon, was a huge opportunity for them. They've adopted quite a different approach than what they've done at Roma. I mean, they ended up making that managerial switch. They probably didn't want to do that, but within a fortnight of coming in, Sean Dyche had more or less thrown in the towel and admitted he'd taken the team as far as they could. So you could say it was an inspired choice. Was it the safe choice in bringing David Moyes in? So like a lot of new owners, whether they wanted to or not, they made the managerial change very quickly. But since then, it's been quite a hands-off approach. They brought in a new chief executive, Angus Kinnear, who came from Leeds United at the end of last season, and they've kind of let the football people get on with the football decisions. And whether you like it or not, Dan Freakin, the owner's never actually been to the new stadium. He didn't go to Goodison Park either. Maybe it's just a business opportunity for him. It's interesting because he takes quite a different sort of approach with Roma, his other European team. He was in the open-top bus when they won the Conference League with his son and enjoying all those moments. He's been to a few games. He also burnt through 4 managers in 1 calendar year last year, so hopefully a different approach than that at Everton. Maybe he's learnt from what he did at Roma, and he's taken a different sort of approach. I mean, Italian football tends to be more volatile anyway. So, yeah, everything's going well in that respect. They've put a lot of money in terms of consolidating debts and getting debts onto lower interest, stuff like that. I mean, it's not necessarily what you see as a fan. I mean, you're just interested in what they're doing in terms of buying players, but sort of lots of things like that behind the scenes where they've put the club on a more sort of level footing and looking towards the future and being more stable in that respect. So, yeah, all so far so good in that respect with the owners, and not meddling in things and necessarily taking quite a hands-off approach, but sort of a calm approach, sort of what Everton needed after all those years of turmoil. I mean, incredibly, in the summer, for the first time in a number of years, Everton had money to burn. They couldn't spend the money. David Moyes was bemoaning the fact that with 9 teams competing in Europe this season, it was hard for Everton to actually get the signings that they wanted to get, because obviously if you go one of the better players, you want to go and play for a club in Europe. So it was actually tough for them to sell the Everton project to prospective signings. So for once, they couldn't spend the money that they had, although he said in January it's probably more likely than not that they won't sign players. There's still a couple of areas people like to see key acquisitions, but the idea has been, the message from the owners is it's all about a long-term plan rather than quick fixes. And as fans, I suppose you can be guilty of wanting everything now, and it's probably more a sensible approach.
Of course, Jack Grealish was the big signing in the summer and the one that made the headlines, but Everton did spend well over 100 million on the likes of Dewsbury Hall from Chelsea and Tyler Diblin from Southampton. So is there a clear policy on how Everton recruit at the moment?
It was like you say, that I'm not too sure in that respect, because it was the club's record net spend, despite me saying that they did have more money to spend. So on the one hand, they've had a bit of a mix. Grealish is obviously the finished article. The first £100 million English footballer arrived on loan, looking to show that he can still cut it after becoming surplus to clients at Manchester City. So you've got him, the superstar, as it were. You've got Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, who's sort of at the peak of his powers. He had 27 years of age, just left Chelsea, did well for them in Europe, but got less of an opportunity in Premier League matches. So he's hungry and wanting to play every week. And then you've got people like Tierno Barry, who's the striker they brought in from Villarreal, 27 million, and he really struggled. He didn't score until December, and he's got 2 against Forest now, and then obviously got a consolation goal against Brentford. So all of a sudden, he's got 2 and 2, but he was really struggling. So they I don't know, in terms of a clear policy, they've kind of gone for all 3 sort of different types of signings in that respect. I think the manager actually wanted more Premier League experience if he could get it, because perhaps at 62, he thinks, on the one hand, he thinks he's committed to improving Everton's future. He said he's disappointed about the dearth of talent within the academy, and he wants to work on that. And that's something that might not bear fruit until after he's retired. So in the one respect, he's looking to the future, but you've got to think at his age now, he knows that the clock's ticking, and you probably want to have that quicker success if you can get it. So I don't know in terms of what they're going for with the recruit. They dropped the director of football model. I mean, that's a big thing now, a hot potato in football, just how effective that is. It certainly didn't work for Everton. Everton had 3 different directors of football, and after Farhad Moshiri brought that in, it didn't work for Everton. So I'm happy to have one boss man, as it were, calling the shots in that respect. I mean, he does have a big recruitment team around him and he's brought people in. But yeah, that's something that's changed. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes forward. I think obviously it was just the start really this summer, the first transfer window. Obviously you had the January window, but the first main one over the summer. So yeah, it remains to be seen. I guess it's all about that incremental growth. If you do well this season, I mean, both Sunderland and Everton have got a chance of Europe. It might not happen for either of them ultimately, but the fact that they're both in the conversation shows that that certainly for Sunderland that's massive progress. And if you just got to try and build it as you can, you could maybe get some better players next summer because of that, and then challenge again, maybe go closer next year. And I think that's the way Everton have got to do it rather than everything at once, because that was just they've been shown it doesn't.
Just looking at this season so far and looking down the results, I've noticed that on a run at the moment of 1 win in 5, and then before that they'd won 4 in the 5 games before that. It seems like at the moment David Moyes is just looking for that consistency in his team at the moment.
Yeah, they've not they've not been consistent in that respect. It's sometimes when you think that the things are going to be on the hiding to nothing, they pull out a result at Forest the way they did, and then they would have been expected to do well against Brentford, and they didn't. I think at the moment he's hamstrung in this respect, and they're without some of their most creative players right now. Iliman Ndiaye is at the Africa Cup of Nations alongside Idrissa Gueye with Senegal, and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall got a hamstring injury on his return to Chelsea just 15 minutes into the game last month. Grealish had just come back after a virus over the festive period, and he was looking a bit leggy. I mean, Moyes admitted that at Stamford Bridge he was carrying a knock there. So they've been the three players behind the striker. They've been the main sort of creators for Everton this season, and 2 of them are out at the moment and 1 just coming back. So that's where they've struggled, and that's why Brentford was so strange. In that the one thing they usually are is defensively solid. There's usually a sort of core, a real strong spine at the back there at the side. So to ship 4 against Brentford, with the hope that Evertonians will be hoping that was a one-off, because although I say that, I mean, Newcastle put 4 past them, and obviously they lost 3 at home to Tottenham. So yeah, it's strange that most of the time they are solid, but then they seem to have these days when these bad days at the office where everything can collapse quite quickly. So yeah, that is searching for that consistency. One thing they've not had, to be fair, the club's most valuable player, Jarrad Branthwaite, has not kicked a ball all season. Got to remember that. This is a player, Everton, when Manchester United were coming calling for him the summer before last, rating him about 80 million in terms of he's a rare commodity. He's a ball-playing centre-back. He's a man-mountain in terms of his stature. He can combine that physical presence with somebody who can actually carry the ball out of defence and start attacks. And then you got that sort of premium as a left-footed English player as well. He's an incredible talent, but he's just not been fit all season. I mean, he signed a new 5-year deal over the summer, and he missed a trip to America, got himself fitted in, then got injured again. He's not played all season. He was on the cusp of actually making a comeback in the autumn, and he suffered another setback, and he went out and had a medical procedure after that, went under the knife. So he's again on the comeback trail now, but he hasn't played all season. And Everton's whole sort of play changes when he's in the team as well, as Michael Keane and James Tarkowski have done at times. Like I said, most of the time they're consistent, but then you have these results where everything goes wrong. But Everton's whole way they play changes when Branthwaite is playing, and they've not had Jarrad Branthwaite all season. So he's a big one when he finally comes back to fitness. That'll be a game changer for Everton.
Yeah. I did ask the question because they're on a run of 1 win in 5, and then before that they won 4 in 5. So it just seems to flip. But one thing you mentioned the greatest thing, and I was going to actually ask about that because you mentioned his virus, and the fact he was pictured in many places, maybe kind of having a few drinks or maybe out on a night out. I mean, has there been any fallout for any of that?
There doesn't seem to have been any fallout. David Moyes was very reticent to talk about all of that. You could understand why. And, you know, reports of him being out with Kyle Walker, and then Kyle Walker was actually playing for Burnley in that game that Grealish missed. So that maybe sort of angered his mood even more. I mean, it's a good relationship between the two, but perhaps Moyes understands he needs to keep Grealish on a tight leash. As good as he is, as charismatic he is as a person, and he's a great character to have around, and everyone knows how he's great with the kids and stuff like that, and what a great guy he is after with him focusing on the football. It was interesting after Grealish scored the winner at Bournemouth, and he said that he loves David Moyes to bits, and Moyes didn't seem to like that. He was like, "No, I want my play. I'm used to my players hating me." He didn't take kindly to that. But yeah, I mean, David Moyes is the man who convinced him to come from the Etihad. I think there were discussions over the summer. I think he personally took him out to dinner, sold him the Everton project, so he's on board on that. Yeah, and the manager was very tight-lipped about that. So, like you said, you can only speculate about what went on, and at least he is back now, and he's working his way in. But I mean, he's loved by the fans because he's just he's a great player to watch, isn't he? Whatever you think about him, he's an intelligent player. He draws fouls. He can do things that other people don't. I mean, in that 4-2 game against Brentford, he got 2 assists. So hopefully, from an Everton point of view, that's a return to form for Jack Grealish. I suspect he's going to have to do a lot more to convince Thomas Tuchel that he's worth a place in the plane for the World Cup plans. I don't think that one's going to happen, but he just wanted to get back to enjoying his football again after what had happened at Manchester City. He'd obviously won the treble with them, but then he'd fallen out of favour. It's one of those players, getting the arm around the shoulder, and he just wants to be happy going in to do his work. And to be fair, he's doing that at Everton, and the fans love him, and he's made a big impact.
Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game is Saturday night. Jordan Love and the Packers take on Caleb Williams and the Bears. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game.
That's going to be caught for the touchdown.
NFC North rivals square off in the latest chapter of the NFL's oldest feud. The Packers and Bears in Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game. Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Only on Prime. Sign up for a 30-day free trial today. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Just remind people again that we are recording ahead of the midweek fixtures. But I did see your comments after the Brentford game when Brentford seemed to comfortably win 4-2. And you said that actually Brentford controlled that game. So just looking ahead to the Wolves game, because I'm not sure about turning the corner, but they've got a result against Manchester United. But how big is this game coming up against Wolves?
Yeah, what they do, as we said, we're speaking before this Wolves game and obviously before the FA Cup game happens, so it could be all changed. But yeah, they do in that respect. Say Wolves come into this on the back of 4 points in the last 2 games, and obviously that the first win of the season at the 20th attempt. So yeah, the expectation will firmly be on Everton returning to winning ways, and no matter what happens against Sunderland on Saturday, they're certainly going to be expected to turn Wolves over on Wednesday night. But I'm sure some Blues are going to be nervous in the fact that all of a sudden Wolves, after doing nothing for half a season, have found a little bit of form going into this one. So yeah, it's a potential banana skin in that respect, but it's one you've got to be expecting to win.
Just looking at Everton in the Cup over the recent years, I mean, there's been 2 quarter-final appearances and 1 run to the semi-final in the last 10 years. Other than that, it's been exits in the 3rd and 4th round. And then looking at the Premier League table, there's a 14-point gap between Everton and the bottom 3 after Forest's win at West Ham on Tuesday. I mean, do you think Everton might be one of quite a few clubs who'll be looking at the prospect of a good cup run this season?
Definitely, I said Evertonians are looking for it. Yeah, I'm older than my dad was when Everton last won the FA Cup. 2 of my kids are older than what I was. You look, they're not across Stanley Park anymore since the stadium move, but you're sharing a city with most successful club in the country, team, the reigning Premier League champions, team who's had European glories. I mean, it's incredible, really, that Everton are playing in front of their biggest regular crowds in their history now at the new stadium, over 50,000 there every week. They've only ever averaged over 50,000 once in their history, a 62-63 title winning season. So when you've got a neighbour as successful as Liverpool are, even when they're not winning leagues, they're doing well in cups. For Evertonians to be raised with that and not having that, you've got to be going as strong as you can to win. Like we've already talked about the changing dynamic of the FA Cup. It's kind of been a double-edged sword that Everton's decline as a football power sort of came at the same time that winning trophies became tougher if you weren't one of the elite moneyed clubs. So yeah, if you go out, you go out, but you've got to give it your best shot. And whoever wins out of Everton or Sunderland, that team's got to just go with their strongest side in the next round, whoever they get, and give it their best shot. Like I say, if you go out, but don't do it because you've been silly and you've made too many changes because you've got one eye on some Premier League game, or because you're not going to go down. Neither of them are going to go down. They're going to be all right. And that's what football should be about those, like I said, those memories, those days out at Wembley, winning a trophy. That's what it should all be about. Certainly for clubs the size of Everton and Sunderland, they've, unfortunately, the days of unless there's a major change in football, neither, was it 7 league titles for Sunderland, is it? And obviously 9 for Everton. Proud records, but I don't see either of those being added to in our lifetimes. I'm sorry, unless there's a major change in the way football is. I mean, Leicester City had the miracle season, but yeah. So that, for me, places even greater emphasis on those domestic cup competitions. And there's only one left now for Everton this season. And you just got to go for it as good as you can do. Of course, it's the luck of the draw. And, you might get Arsenal or Man City away and it's game over or something like that. But you never know. Like you said, there's a lot of Premier League teams playing each other. And it opens up the competition then, and then you build that momentum. So, yeah, for me, I'm always banging the drum about this. You've got to at least give it your best shot. Don't go out because you've mucked about with the team selection. Go out because the opponent was better than you, but just go as strong as you can and see how far you can go. You never know. It might open up, and it's certainly not beyond the realms of fancy for either of these teams. Whoever wins that third round team, along with the other ones who win the All Premier League ties, just got to go for it.
Yeah. So you'll be surprised if David Moyes makes any changes or big changes.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to do. I mean, it's the end of it'll be the further 3 home games in 7 days. I certainly hope, maybe when I see him on Friday, I'll have to say to him, because for me also, it's actually a bit of a change for me on Saturday. I'm taking my 3 daughters to their first game at Hill Dickinson Stadium. Doing the job that I do, covering the team home and abroad. It's actually very difficult for me to take my kids to the game because I'm working every match day. So when the draw was made, I saw this as an opportunity to take them. We were actually away on holiday they played Mansfield at home in the Carabao Cup second round. So that would have been another one at the start of the season back in August. So we missed that opportunity. So yeah, I'm not going to be in the press box on Saturday. I'm taking my kids. So from my point of view, I want him to go as strong as possible. Don't want to be mucking about, messing that up for them for what is their first trip to the new stadium. But yeah, for all Evertonians, young or old, and like I said, the same will go for Sunderland. I think both teams should just go as strong as they can and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You're able to take the kids and thinking, actually, when I was young, I think I probably looked at Everton as more of a cup side because, when I was young, they got to the final 5 times in 12 years. But just in the modern days, I mean, will home fans be turning out in big numbers for the Sunderland game, hoping for a good cup run?
Completely sold out very quickly as well. I mean, it's going to be great. Obviously, you're going to have those extra Sunderland fans in with it being the FA Cup game. It's Sunderland's first trip to the stadium. It's the early kick-off, but I'm sure it's going to be a cracking atmosphere because both teams will be up for this one. Yeah, it's sold out. And I mean, sold out. I mean, the premium tickets as well, the so-called corporates as well, the whole lot sold out very quickly. To be fair to Everton, they've reduced the prices with it being FA Cup. It's only £5 for the kids to get in there, see 2 Premier League teams play each other. And okay, it's an FA Cup game, but yeah, that's, you can't argue with that. So yeah, it'll be rocking over 52,000 in there. Like I said, the early start though, but yeah, I'm sure it'll still be a cracking atmosphere.
Well, again, just looking back, Everton won the quarterfinal clash in 2012 and the 4th round tie in 2005. We have to go back to 1979 when Sunderland last knocked Everton out of the FA Cup. I think that was a 3rd round tie at Roker Park, I think. But have you got a good feeling either way about this one?
I've got to say Everton, haven't I? It's got to. I imagine it's going to be tight either way. I'd see. I was up at the Stadium of Light for the Premier League game, and that was a curious one in terms of. Thought Everton started really strongly that night. Iliman Ndiaye scored an absolute genius of a goal, and Sunderland at that point, they were reminding me a lot of Ipswich the previous season. They're newly promoted. They were very game, but perhaps limited. But then, as the game obviously went on, I think Everton sort of almost their heads dropped after I think Grealish hit the post, and then Tierno Barry missed a sitter at the back post, and then after that, the game just turned, and Everton were clinging on then, and having to do a lot of defending, and see Xhaka scored very early in the second half. So I don't know in terms of who's available for Sunderland, but I imagine it's going to be a keenly fought contest, and it's going to be a close one either way. I mean, I've got to go for Everton. I say maybe 1-0 Everton, but yeah, I think it's going to be. Hopefully, it's a really sort of good. I've used this phrase, old-fashioned cup tie in a modern surroundings. In terms of both teams and both sets of fans are up for it, and the players too. Yeah.
Well, with these two teams, it does feel like a proper cup tie, but that just leaves me to say have a fantastic weekend with the kids, Chris. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks again, Chris. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have more build-up with a pod on the morning of the game, as well as immediate reaction after the final whistle on the Roker Report website, as well as a match reaction pod that should drop soon after the final whistle. So look out for all of that. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.